All right, here we go. Chapter 11. This is where we really start to break off within this course, and we're going to go down the route of careers in this profession. Okay, so this is rather general, this first chapter, chapter 11, but then again, it's very specific into these different types of professions that you could have, the subdivisions. And the idea is for you to start to think a little bit, is that the type of workspace I'd want to be in? Is that the type of career I'd want to have in this field? That's the goal. This chapter and the next, I think it's five, the next upcoming 5 chapters after this. So this is how we finish off this course as we start to go a little bit deeper dive into, what can you actually do in this field? Okay. But again, we got to start rather general here first. And one thing I like to make a note on is this last bullet point that you might have a career, right? Or you might pursue a career, let's say, and you go down that route. You're starting to do the different educational components you need, some experience, and you're like, that's not exactly what I want to do. That's totally normal and cool. Okay? Like, that's what happens in life. So I first started out, I was an athletic training major. I always knew kinesiology was kind of my field for me. Some people take longer and they got to stumble into it and find their way. But I always knew. But again, I've told you the story. I grew up, my mom was a physical therapist my entire life. So I kind of knew this field a little bit, right? Like I got a weight set when I was in 7th or 8th grade. Like I kind of already knew what this was about. But anyways, after my first semester in college, and I just took one course related to athletic training, I was like, this is not me. I thought that's what it was, but no. So I just went a different path, a different route, right? And that happens. So that's the one thing I like to make people aware of on this slide here is to be, willing to take chances, because it's not that big of a deal if you just jump to another, a lateral move or even a different profession, you got to try different things. All right, so here we go. Let's get into it. What we're going to do over these next couple chapters is look into the details of these subdivisions. So, you can see it right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chapters on different professions within kinesiology. Again, some of these I'm quite literally an expert on. I'll help you through. Others, I'm going to give you some experience of people I've worked with over the years. And then some of the other content, it's like, hey, this is kind of what I know about it. So that's my goal, is to give you some insights into some of these things. Okay. But first, before we get into those details, you're like, oh, I want to be a physical therapist. Oh, I want to be like, take a step back, because you got to understand what kinesiology is about. Okay. So I like the very first bullet point there, where there's this idea that everything we really do in our field, and it says right here, grounded and guided by systemic theory and research. So what they do in our field is they label us as these applied practitioners, or we blend theory and application. Things like that is what they say in our field. Because, right, like you can be an okay coach, personal trainer. You can't even be a physical therapist, to be honest, because you need higher education. But you can be an okay coach. You can be an okay personal trainer. In this field, that's about it, to be honest with you, without having high level education. But the people who are educated in those professions, for example, they stand out because they can tie into the research, into their practice, into their training sessions. That's the key. That's what our field is about. That's why you need so much education to be a chiropractor, a physical therapist, even a high-level strength and conditioning coach, an occupational therapist. You need to even dive deeper into some of the business type of classes to be an athletic director and things like that, or a sports agent. You just need the knowledge. Okay, that is going to continue to come up in this chapter, that theme there. The other thing I want to say is that the third bullet point stands out to me. Regardless of which direction you go in this field, you're always going to service other people. Quite literally. Again, I just said the last two things I said was sports agent, athletic director. You're literally working for people. Physical therapist, clients, strength and conditioning coach, athletes, personal trainer, clients, chiropractor, clients, a coach, your athletes, a professor, your students. Like every single person in this field is working for somebody to help them. Okay, so you got a little bit have that mindset of I'm willing and eager to help people out. And then for us, it happens to be more on the physical side, the exercise side. Obviously, that's what kinesiology is. But just remember that third bullet point. Okay. All right, let's keep going here. Because again, I'm just highlighting some of the things that I think would be interesting for you to have a little more insight into. This little diagram is actually not that confusing, so I'll just run through it really quick. On the left is where we want to be. We want to be a professional in this field. Okay, with being a professional in this field has these different characteristics. And some of it is just straight up work ethic, but also it's that idea that you have the theory and the knowledge behind you. Okay, and you stand out, right? Versus the people who are kind of like dabbling in this field, right? Like, oh, I'm like, my uncle trains people in his basement. He's a personal trainer. I'm like, no, that's not really a personal trainer. That's just a dude that trains people in his basement. Okay, if you're a professional trainer, you have a certification. Obviously, you have liability insurance. Obviously, you have minimum like an AA degree. You probably have a bachelor's degree. You've taken a variety of specialty courses. That's a professional. Not like, I know this person that trains people at the beach. That's just somebody who trains people at the beach. That's not the same thing, right? So you got to understand there's this continuum. And some of the professions don't allow you to even have a continuum. Physical therapy, there's no such thing as a continuum. You have to be at the highest level. You're a doctor of physical therapy now. That's it. There's nothing less than that, for example. Okay. So again, it just kind of depends profession to profession if there's even a continuum here, but we're going to push everybody towards the left of having the highest level of kind of standards in the profession. Maybe it's education, maybe it's certifications, maybe it's licenses, or just knowledge, to be honest with you. Okay, so we're going to look into some of these professions. All right, again, I'm going to skip through some of the slides just so I can get to the more interesting concepts. All right, look at these last couple words, grounded in theory. Okay, so in our profession, I've already said this, but I'm going to, really make this like a bold statement here that there's this idea that we have theory. We take all these science classes and then we apply it. That's what you do as a physical therapist. You learn about how the body works internally, externally. These are your different joints, the range of motion you need. Okay, now I go and treat my patients. Right? And again, that's what the good coaches do. That's why a lot of times, honestly, all the junior colleges you work at, you need a master's degree to be a coach. All the high level D1s, you need at least a bachelor's. Now, there's a couple of people that kind of get away with like, oh, I was a former NBA player, and they slide through the cracks because they have so much practical knowledge that they have, they're going to let them through. But in general, you're going to need some level of education to work your way through to these higher level jobs. Okay, so again, it's grounded in theory. It's grounded in all these science classes you're taking. You take all these science classes and you're like, all right, cool. I know how the body works. I can use that information now to go whatever you do. Train people, help people, teach people, whatever it is. Okay. So again, kind of keep reading through those bullet points that I didn't discuss right there. A lot of this, again, is on you to also listen to this and go back and reread these slides. This one's kind of interesting because it's saying a few different things. Let's start with this. We'll go left to right. To really be a professional in this field, the very far left is saying you need that theory of science knowledge, essentially is what it is. And you're going to get that. If you do a bachelor's of kines, you're going to get that deep science. You do a master's of kines, you're going to get even deeper science. Okay? So I tell people, how far do you want to go with your educational career? Maybe just think one step further, because you're going to have more opportunities when you're ready to enter the field and get paid. Okay, but that's number one. Number two, you need actual experience. That's why internships are so important in our field. You need to be a personal trainer and you don't do lifting on a regular basis, you don't do strength training, you don't know how to squat, you don't know what a hip hinge is, and you're a personal trainer, like, no offense, you shouldn't be a personal trainer, okay? Because you need that practical knowledge. It's the same thing. Like, they won't let you be a physical therapist until you put all these hours in, these volunteer type of hours that you have to do. Why? Because you're going to work under a professional physical therapist. You're going to learn, these are the joint ranges that I need. This is the best protocol. Somebody's coming back from an ACL surgery. This is what I should have them do. This, okay? And then the third pillar there is very similar to actually what I was just discussing. It's within your specific field itself. Like for me, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so I train athletes. I need to have very specific knowledge about like energy systems, how to develop speed and power. Okay, like my sister's a physical therapist. She doesn't really need that, to be honest with you, like at all. Even though she was a high-level D1 athlete, she doesn't need that information because she rehabs people. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. It's very specific. Like, I don't have the knowledge of one of my buddies is a sports agent out here in LA, right? I'm not going to say who his clients are, but I don't have half of that knowledge he does. But we both started in this kinesiology umbrella. I just went into training. He went in the other route, more of the business and legal side. So, and that's where it applies to the fourth pillar, is basically what I just said. It's your workplace knowledge too. So now I work at Santa Monica College. Now I need to know the policies here to be a professional at this college, because it's different, right? I have buddies who work at USC, UCLA, other schools for strength and conditioning. What I have to do and what they have to do is slightly different based on my setting, right? I got buddies that work at high level private high schools. You've heard of these schools before in LA, and what they do is a little bit different with their school, their policies. I don't have the same policies here, and I have some policies they don't have, for example. So you have to know all that information. All right, just trying to give you some like very, very practical insight of how I use this information on the daily basis. Okay, make sure that you read through these two type of professionals. It says the civic professionalism, market-driven professionalism. I think there's a quiz question on that. I'll let you kind of read through that. But the one thing I want to say is the bottom bullet point. You as a person is going to influence your professional career. So it says your personal values. End of the day, like if we have two occupational therapists, it's still, one of them might be more successful just because of their work ethic, their values, you know, their dedication to the field. All these things matter still. It's not just, ooh, I passed the test. Cool. Ooh, I have a bachelor's degree. Ooh, cool. No, there's more to it than that, right? The person makes the difference. So you're always trying to be like the best professional you could be. Okay. Speaking of being you, that's your personality. Your personality is going to influence maybe even the type of job you have. So read through this resource. It's kind of cool. I've talked about this before in this class, but now I started to like just create the resource for you to have. So read through it. It's talking about personalities, different types of personalities related to some of the fields and things I've seen over the years. All right, kind of makes sense. I'll give you some extreme examples that I know of personally. Like I know a couple of coaches who are the head strength and conditioning coach of Division I football at a very, very high level. I mean, if you're not like the most alpha male, military-like person, you probably shouldn't have that job, just so you know. Other things, you know, like that. Like again, my sister's more soft-spoken. She was a high-level athlete, but like, so with her personality, she's great for physical therapy. She doesn't have to like get in people's face. She works with them and can be very like nurturing. Cool. That's like kind of my mom was as a physical therapist, very more like nurturing, literally like a mom, you know? So it just depends. Like one of my buddies who I said is a sports agent, very like, just what you would think of in the movies. Like this guy gets deals done. Like that's his personality. You know what I mean? Like, he goes to the grocery store and like he's gonna talk his way into like, no, this is a 2-for-1 sale. I'm only gonna pay you like this is how he is. You know what I mean? So your personality comes into play is what I'm trying to say. All right. As you can tell, I have a lot of different little things I'll tap into over these next few chapters. So it becomes a little bit more like real world, not just like, oh, this is what the book says. This is how you become a coach. Or I'll give you some of the real world examples. Okay, in the workplace itself, one thing I want to skip all the way down to is internships. I would say every single profession in this field requires experience that's hands-on. So we call that an internship. Most of the time, they're not paid in this field, just so you know. But there are a lot of opportunities to make, like say minimum wage while you're getting the experience. Like that's pretty amazing, just so you know. But think about it like way, 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 way back in the day. You're going to be like, I don't know, a shoe repair person back in the day. Well, all you did was you hung around your uncle who repaired around, and your father who repaired shoes on a daily basis, and they taught you how to do that. And then you opened up your own business one day, and right, like that's just how it used to be. So it's not different than now, right? It's just now we call it internships. It's more of a formal process, that sort of thing. Okay, but you really should be looking into ways to volunteer ASAP. And again, if you're like, I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, try it out. That's what you also do in this field. You try stuff out for volunteer for free. This talks a little bit about the different components of kinesiology, the different sciences. Honestly, some of it's the different science classes that you'll take. Kind of skip through that a little bit. Read through this. This is kind of just you asking yourself these questions, honestly. So you read through that on your own a little bit there. And I guess I'm just going to even finish with really this slide here is that bullet point number 1 is the point of this class, okay? We're trying to prepare you for the academic rigor of kinesiology. That's what we talked about. Hey, this is what exercise physiology is. This is what biomechanics is. And I keep telling you, look into the bachelor's program. Look into a master's program. Look into what the requirements are to be a physical therapist, because it's not as easy as you think. And how competitive it is, whew. So you got to start to look into these things. We're going to have some assignments too where you do this. All right, you're going to look into some different fields, some different schools, colleges that you could transfer to. So that's really our goal over these next 5 or 6 weeks here specifically, is to look into different occupations and how you can start to get a jump start in that profession itself. Alrighty, so I hope you enjoyed this chapter to kind of introduce professions in kinesiology, and we'll start diving a little bit deeper within the next chapters.